This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Keith Angle. TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? I'll be joined by my co-host, the Mad New Yorker, in just a couple of minutes. How's everybody doing on this Friday? August. Wish it was August. October 14th. Guys, I feel like I haven't been on in forever. I haven't done a show since Sunday. Some busy times at work. And out nights, and just have not been able to get a show together other than a Patriot update Monday, and a little work I did for Dan Harris, helping fill in for him as he gets better. Good, keep getting better, Dan. And by the way, after today, I am on vacation, so I'll send out a post, something probably tonight, maybe tomorrow, about what we'll be doing show-wise. And again, we welcome everybody from Facebook, Twitter. Where else are we live today? YouTube. We'll be on with Roku. This will be on Roku at 12 today, and then replayed a few times next week. And as far as our schedule going forward with me on vacation, I'm gone until the 24th. So Sunday show this week, which would be the 16th and the 23rd, are going to be a little up in the air, as are the college football huddle and Friday show. So I won't be on with Carlos on Friday. The Sunday stream of consciousness will kind of do on the fly. If I get some time and have pretty good signal, we'll come on live and do a little bit. Times are going to be up in the air, as they have been when I've been on vacation in the middle of the Caribbean before. So we'll let you know. I'll put a post up on the site about that. And if I know when I'm going to go live, I'll put a post up as well. But we'll do something a few times during the week, and we'll see how that goes. So forgive me for for not being on with the college football huddle on Wednesday. We'll cover some of that stuff when I get back. But there'll be lots to catch up on because there's some big games this weekend. And it's just the way that it went. So I'll go live at some point next week to talk about this weekend's big games, which we'll get into today as well. So welcome everybody who's in live. Somebody's got a comment up here. It's a good morning from Alan Perales. Good morning, Alan. How are you? Hope you're doing well out there in Oklahoma. It's a little chilly here today. It's freezing, actually. I had to put a little jacket on. So anyway, we're going to get into the Mets collapse today. We'll get into a little bit of chat about the LDS as they go on in Major League Baseball. We'll talk about the Mad New Yorkers. I don't know any other word for it other than obsession with lack of progress from his New York football teams, which I don't know. Maybe I'm out to lunch. I find myself as a non-fan, and I haven't said this, directly here because I do a show about New York sports with Dan Harris, and I don't make any illusions that I'm a New York fan in football. But I find myself defending the Jets and Giants constantly. It's amazing. So we'll get into that a little bit. And by the way, both teams over 500 playing, I guess, pretty good football. And we'll look at our picks of the week, our games to watch in college football. And there's a bunch of them. So we'll try to pick three. I got a couple outliers because I'm sure we'll agree on some. So with no further ado, let's bring in the aforementioned Carlos, Mad New Yorker. Good morning, Carlos.
Happy Friday, everybody. Good morning. How you doing, Keith?
I've been waiting for this show, Carlos, all week. Didn't matter to me that I wasn't able to get on because of other obligations. I just wanted to talk to Carlos about the Jets and Giants, which we'll do.
You want me to get your blood boiling? Is that what it is?
It's shocking that I have to continue to defend these
But don't defend them, Keith. Let them play it out. Let them play.
This is the way sports works. You are what you are today and you are what you are tomorrow. So anyway, we'll get into that in a second. Let's focus on some Major League Baseball to start with, just because that's top of mind right now, right? We got
Right,
and we got to back up because we got to talk about the Mets playoff collapse. I know you were at least one of the games last week, or maybe two. I'm not sure how many you went to. How many did you go to?
I went to one. There was a like a lottery type of system that the Mets ticketing office used for some of the ticket holders. So I'm not in the upper echelon. I'm more in the middle, like type of ticket holder. So season ticket holder. So as far as that goes, we were able to get the postseason, the first round, which was a wild card, and then the second round, and then also World Series. Games.
You're gonna be kind of lonely at those games.
Oh no, I'll be there. I'll be.
Who's gonna be there?
I'll be there. Just have the door open and get the popcorn, and I'll watch the other teams play. That's what they should. They should do something like that.
Play the game,
stadium open, and for people, season ticket holders, or have a section of the stadium open, like maybe the Yacht Club or something, where people could watch the rest of the season.
There'd be 4 people there with you watching the Braves.
I mean, I wouldn't mind, because I don't like a lot of people around me when I watch baseball anyway. So
you'd certainly be at home then in an empty City Field watching Phillies and Braves.
But I'll be comfortable, and
let's get into this collapse. I mean, good grief! I've heard some people here blaming Buck. Look at Buck made a bonehead bush league move in Game 3 when he went out to the mound. You got to know you're right in that case. But Buck isn't at fault for them losing the series. Buck didn't go out there and beat Max Scherzer, who for the second game in a row, 2 games the Mets pay him $40 million, $43 million to win, and just throw in 2 total stinkers against the Braves at the end of the regular season, and then against Padres in Game 1. He did not hit. They had 3 guys that really hit it all in this series, and Alonso, Escobar, and one other guy. Everybody else stunk the place up. I mean, this was just the worst nightmare for Met fans. Win 101 games and go out meekly. Not even putting up a fight, really. 1 hit in the last game. What are your thoughts as a Met fan?
I'm not going to say I told you so, but I will say that I did have the Mets going over 100 games and not making the World Series. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, but you didn't have them going out meekly in a wild card.
No, I didn't. But when discussing the team, the Mets and the Yankees, when we were discussing them, we were always like, well, they didn't do that great during the trade deadline, and I gave them a C.
It showed up now.
And I told them it wasn't enough to get through and get into the World Series. And people were like, oh well, they got a few guys, and I think Buck is at fault at the point where Vogelback and Ruff saw one too many games. That
what was other options though? I might have played.
I think that they would have been.
I might have played them.
Yeah, I think it would have been a better situation if they would have brought up Smith back into the lineup. Because he has a steady. At least you could play him at first base and give Pete a little bit of rest, DH him at least one of those games. I saw that.
But that's not totally Buck's call either. Now he has some input there. If he's in the dugout and he doesn't play him, then I can blame Buck totally. But
yeah, and I think what that was that Smith was ready to come back. The minor leagues already had ended, but I think it was the fact that they wanted to go with what they had. Like they felt like they didn't need to put they felt like maybe adding someone like Smith would put a monkey wrench in the system of what they had, but the system wasn't even that great to begin with. So regardless of who made the decision and why he didn't come back up.
Games.
Sorry?
They won 101 games. It's not
that's another thing, right? They're winning. I think that's one of the misconceptions and one of the hardest things about baseball when you're managing and when you have a GM is like, hey, our guys are winning. You know what? We can't do too much. Don't touch the money. Don't touch the money. We can't do too much.
Chemistry is a delicate balance as well.
So. Yeah, it is, and that's why I think it would have been a better move to bring in Dom Smith, back into the lineup, because he's already played with those guys. He played with them last year, the year before. He knows the team. He even would have played better in the outfield because he's lost the weight and he's picked, and he's been playing first and the outfield in the minors. So it was just the fact that he had a slump, and his slump was just as bad as everybody else's who was starting. So bringing him up wouldn't have been a bad idea. And as much as he has a slump, and the analytics show that he's a clutch player, he's a clutch hitter. So I think that would have been a move that they missed on. But the pitching, I kept saying to you, and I said to everybody, like, I wouldn't care if DeGrom and Scherzer would come and pitch in September, get ready for October, because they're older. They're not the young bucks that can just go out there and take over a game every single time they're called on. They have to get in a rhythm. And when I say that, they have to get in a rhythm of, and not be like hurt, because Scherzer got hurt a few weeks before the start, and he tried to go with the pain, and he played, and it was
hurt, and he shouldn't be pitching if he's injured.
That's the thing. That's right there. That's what you hit the nail. You hit the nail right with the hammer right there. That was it.
Backwards. If he's injured, he shouldn't be pitching. If he's hurt, just go out there and suck it up.
Yeah, and he didn't. I don't feel like they did any due diligence on him and his health, as far as because a player can only will go out there regardless of how he feels, and the medical team should have done a better job with him and figuring him out.
Well, again, I watched him pitch. I don't know that I'm not going to give him an out and say he was hurt. I'm paying him $43 million to win these games. That Brave game and that Padre game, that's what he gets paid for, that $43 million.
Yeah, and then
you're right. Maybe they should have lessened his workload during the season. But again, they were losing their lead. They couldn't really afford to do that. So
and I went to a few games where they should have, there are games that they had to win, and they should have won, like with the Cubs game. Remember, I got to the Cubs game and they were losing 6-1. Remember?
Yeah.
That game I went up towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are they losing to the Cubs? And then, just a lot of small things that snowballed, and it's what happens in baseball a lot. People want to put blame, just find blame anywhere. And at the end of the day, I can't say that that's fair, because the accomplishments that the Mets have had for this season surpasses the last 3 seasons with the Wilpons
easily.
And it's good for them to get to the playoffs, but just like Yankee fans, as well as myself, you don't want to just get to the playoffs. You want to see the World Series. And I think that's where it hurts the most. It's like, you did well. You actually won over 100 games. You have 2 of the best pitchers in baseball, but you can't hit. And then you go to the last game, and Buck does whatever he can. And it does look like there's substances on this guy's ears.
Yeah.
I think that baseball did a poor job on following up and doing an investigation, because they did kick out. They did make it a point this season to kick people out for having any kind of substance on them, and they should just followed up with that. That's the only thing, and it wouldn't have changed the game, because the Mets weren't hitting. It's just the fact of the matter that you already kicked and you suspended players for having stuff on them, and after investigating, and that's something that the MLB should have done and followed through. I watched this guy pitch. I gave him high praise. We talked about Musgrove on the Padres.
Yeah, he's just a great player.
And he's not a bad pitcher, but he's never been as great as he pitched those 5 innings.
He's a really good pitcher. Sorry. And look at the Mets. The Mets were inept too. I mean, he was out there nasty.
I'm not saying, look,
I agree. He has some nasty breaks on the ball, but it just smells. Listen, I love Buck. I love Buck, but to go out there in this, what was it, 6? Was it 6?
Yeah, it was too late. A little too late.
I would have done it earlier, and not be when you're down 6-0. It looks just Bush and desperate, and you got to be more sure of yourself when you go out there that he's doing something before you go out there and do it.
Well, I watched the game in its whole entirety twice. In the beginning of the game, like in the second and third inning, there was a break, and you saw Buck kind of like filling on the baseballs.
Yeah.
And and my wife asked me, like, why is he doing that? And I'm like, he's looking to see if the pitcher scuffed the ball, or if something's wrong with the baseballs. So he's got 2 of them, and he's like weighing them back and forth. And I don't know if anybody caught that during the game. And then I told her. Then this is like the second inning, third inning, and they skim through Musgrove, and I'm like, why is this guy, man? His face and his ears are really shiny, man. And my wife was like, well, that's sweat. Because I'll be nervous, and I'm like, I don't know if that's sweat. And then lo and behold, he does this thing in the 6th inning, but too little, too late. It doesn't have to me, it's more about principle. It doesn't have that great of effect because the Mets, if he cheated or if he was able to get away with it, he did it because the Mets were inept in hitting.
Yeah, one hit. You can't get one hit. I'm sorry. I don't care if the guy's cheating or not. You get one hit, you're going to lose. So
right. So it wouldn't matter. It's just the principle of doing the due diligence of something that you proposed, you brought into the game about checking pitchers out. That's the only thing that got me.
They do it.
You would take him out of the game, and then he would be suspended for the next game. But it doesn't change the course of the game and then all it does is bring in a pitcher earlier.
Yeah, well, again, they check these guys between innings every night, all night long.
But you cannot say that he didn't have anything in his ears, and then when they're congratulating him,
know what his ears always look like.
Man, come on.
I
just look. All I'm saying, I'm not look. Like I said, I just do an investigation, and if he's clean, he's clean, and if he's not, then suspend him. That's it. But they just going up there and filling his ears. It's not them. It's not MLB doing the due diligence. When the beginning of the season, they kicked out like 3 pitchers for just doing a few things and one for spider tack. So
I gotta tell you, it looks funny though as you watch it. Them feeling his ears. It was very.
It does look funny, but again, if you saw the up to the 3rd or 4th inning, it was like his ears were actually really shiny, and you could tell that it didn't look natural. So, but aside from all that junk, the Mets didn't do themselves any favors. I think Epler was trying to pull a Cashman and get players and use analytics to his favor. It didn't work. And the Mets need to make serious moves. They got about 10 moves they need to make this with 10 players that didn't make this.
Obviously.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a long ride. It's gonna be as much as people are saying that Cohen's got money. It's not just about the money because these players have to want to play in New York. So, that makes another difference too. So,
well, maybe they chase Aaron Judge. Who knows?
It does. I mean, they could throw something out there, but I feel like Judge is ready to move on from the city.
Well, I think he'll move on right back to where he is. $10 million, 10 years, $400 million. Anyway, let me ask you this. As a Met fan, once this hurt goes away, you won 101 games for only the 3rd time in history. It's great.
Fourth, isn't it? 60, 69, 86, 88, and then 2022.
Oh, I said 3rd, 4. Yeah, right, 4. But still, it's a great season. I think the Met fans will see that once they reflect on this a little bit during the offseason. So
yeah, the problem is that it was great when people don't watch that much baseball, and they did better away than they did at home for the beginning part of the season.
Yeah, that needs to be fixed as well. But anyway, it's a good season for the Mets.
Yeah, it was a good season, and the Yankees are doing well right now. And
now let's get here to the LDS a little bit. I think the rain out last night hurts the Yankees a little bit. Cortez,
I was going to mention that to you.
Cortez will probably, if anything, be able to pitch out of the bullpen if there's a game 5. You won't be able to start it, so that'll hurt them a little bit if they get there. The best thing they can do, obviously, is win 3 games and not get there.
Well, they already got Taillon slated for the game 4 or something like that. So
who was it? Say that again?
They got Taillon slated for starting game 4.
Yeah, Taillon will pitch. You got Severino pitching game 3 and Taillon pitching game 4.
Which I thought was kind of aggressive for them to just name a pitcher.
Well,
a little too soon, but I guess they're trying
to. The situation, you might see Cole come back depending on the situation. So
yeah, so let's talk about Cole. I was on the fence about how he was going to do as a starter. The Yankee, fan in me was like, come on, you're the money man. You're going to knock these guys out. But the New York fan in me was like, don't blow this dude. They give you too much money for this game. And I'm glad that he did the latter part is that he went out there and he proved that he's a good pitcher. He gave up a run, but I mean that there's not great pitches hard to come by in the playoffs,
for his mental state because he didn't pitch well against the Red Sox in the wild card round last year. And, this guy's been in the top 4 in Cy Young voting like 4 of the last 5 years. He's a very good top.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 years, yeah.
he's not DeGrom when DeGrom's right, but he's one of the top 6 pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, and the Yankees have to be careful. They have IKF, and he's a good player. He's a good ball player, and but I just feel like sometimes when your infield is kind of like makes a mistake or two, the pitcher kind of also feels like he has to bear more weight on his shoulders. Well, and they have to be careful about that. Because
defense will be important for the Yankees in this playoffs for sure.
Yeah, but I think the pitchers need to like focus on pitching and let the infielders play defense and let them worry about their mistakes. I'm glad that he came back and IKF got a hit, an important hit, and he showed that he does have value. I mean, but people need to pump the brakes. This is the playoffs, and you're not. And great teams play great, but doesn't mean they play good through the whole game.
Cleveland's got a good young team, a good young pitching staff, and I think really good veteran leadership from Jose Ramirez, who I think is one of the most underrated players in baseball and have for a long time. So they're dangerous in that sense, but I think the Yankees, especially with Nestor going up against Shane Bieber, who's really good, by the way, here.
Right. Shane Bieber's showing people that he's got what it takes.
And we get that game early today. I like that. I don't have to stay up till midnight watching this game tonight. So I think it's at 1:07 if I'm not mistaken. So
and look at even someone like Jimenez, who plays great on the infield, that they took away from the Mets on that trade.
Rosario too. They're both
Rosario's playing. They're both playing well, and they're sitting pretty. That deal looks better for them than it did when they were on the Mets. So
yeah, they've done well. I mean, again, the player they got is pretty good, although he stunk it up in the playoffs. But
I keep telling people, and I think we should come to an agreement that the shortstops / second basemen, they're usually smaller because they're quicker, and they might have some pop, but you can't depend on them to hit over 280, 290 consistently, because that's not realistic. I mean,
there's a lot of middle infielders today though with some pop in their bat.
Yeah, so. Yeah, but it's not consistent, and for Lindor to do what he did. I feel like you might get a little bit more out of him, but what else do you want? Like, he kept the Mets in a lot of games with his glove, and that to me, I feel like has
playoffs, but still, he's going to get MVP votes. He had a very good season. He had a very good season.
Yeah, and I think like people want more because of what they're paying him, and I'm like, it's kind of tough,
Plus, it is unfair. Again, you take the money and you come to New York. That's part of the deal. That's going to happen, right?
Yeah, I think in 5 years from now, people are gonna be like, oh yeah, he did play pretty well. The beginning, So
speaking of tough fans, Philadelphia wins Game 1 after. I don't want to say manhandling the Cardinals, but certainly pitching better than we thought they would.
Yeah, definitely
handling the Cardinals, and the Cardinals blowing that lead in Game 1, which really deflated them. Philadelphia wins Game 1 in Atlanta, loses Game 2. This is going to be a fun series. Aaron Nola's pitching today, which is their best pitcher. Well, Wheeler, it's a toss-up between Wheeler and Nola for Philadelphia, right? But the Braves still haven't announced a pitcher, so I don't know who's pitching for them yet.
And the Braves they have all these guys. They just signed a pitcher to a huge contract. They just need to go out there and be aggressive. Name your pitcher. Get this guy, get his mind right. Get him, don't be flip-flopping because you got somebody to choose from.
Might be a little mind game being played there.
You think so? I don't think it matters because Philly's got nothing to lose. Good for them. Good for Jamie Paggs. Thompson, that manager Thompson's pulled him from the ground and has got them all playing well.
Rob Thompson had a great story here. Great lifelong baseball man, and associated with the Yankees for a long time. While Joe Girardi was here with the Tigers, and I was happy to see him get this full-time gig because he's done a great job here, and he's never really gotten an opportunity. And I'm happy to see him get this job full-time. With that said, I think Atlanta handles Philadelphia in this series.
Yeah, but Bryce Harper's back, so this is going to be tough. And people they wrote Harper off, and he's been kind of sneaking in the games and doing things to help Philly. So
I just think the Braves got a deeper I think they have a deeper, a more consistent lineup and a deeper pitching staff.
They do, but they just need to be a little bit more like aggressive. They tend to hold off a little bit too much. The first baseman that they got from the A's, I forget his name. He's they swing too much too early, and they need to kind of play it off a little bit more. So.
Alan, you're right. Anything is better than the Thursday night football games we got. Alan, I'll get to some of your football comments when we get there.
Lord, Alan. Did you watch the game, though?
Oh, God, Mike. It's like I can't watch Thursday night football. It makes my eyes bleed. Let's move on because I want to get to the NFL.
Yeah, Houston won last night.
The Dodgers and San Diego are tied at 1. I still think the Dodgers will run away with this. Just for my cohort, Mark Mancini, I've got to shut him up. All I see all day long, 27 posts about how the Padres are going to sweep the Dodgers. Well, they didn't sweep them, Mark. Now he says they'll wrap it up on Saturday. Then he'll say they'll wrap it up on Sunday.
Well, Mark, look, Mancini has a point about the Dodgers.
Mistake of hating. He says they're no good. Dodgers are a good baseball team.
They're good, but they're not as good as the paper makes them out to be because the division that they play out stinks.
They're better than a Padres.
You have to. Well, the problem and where Mancini's come from is like you have to play a lot better than what your division holds out for you in baseball. And when you go out to some of these games and you play outside of division, it's different. The Dodgers lucked out because they play a team that they've been playing for the last 24 games, and but.
For a guy who resides in Los Angeles, he just hates everything in Los Angeles. It's amazing how he can just.
Well, you don't hate the weather, and he's not moving back to Pennsylvania. So,
well, yeah. Well, he keeps saying we. I have no problem with fans saying we. I say we all the time when it comes to the Patriots or the Yankees because I've invested tons of money in tickets and wearables, and that type of thing. Right. I told them last night. I said, unless you own one piece of San Diego garb, stop saying we. Because you're not a San Diego Padre fan. You're an anti-Dodger fan.
Right. No, so we talked about it before. And even last year, I picked up Padres before they got a lot of the players that they have now to be in the playoffs. And they fell short. They got rid of their coach. They got rid of the manager who didn't coach them up when they were supposed to. And now they got a better manager.
No, there's a great manager.
They have a better – there's a better atmosphere in San Diego. They got ballers there, and that changes the culture there, the perception of what they expected to do. And Machado is picking up his game, and it helps when you have a player like what's his name coming in from the Nationals?
Soto.
What? Soto, yeah. So it helps when you got a player like Soto who's still young and he wants it, and he's getting paid like the best player. So Machado thinks he's the best player on the team. So that little inner competition that they have going back and forth, they know each other. That helps, man. That helps a lot.
They got some holes in this offense, but the holes in the offense actually killed the Mets. Grisham, who hit about 180 for the year, killed the Mets. So
yeah, and the pro forwards is playing better.
Played well, yeah.
They got that guy Grisham. Grisham is
Grisham. He killed the Mets.
Yeah, he's playing great fielding out there for them. Davis, they got guys that are ballers that are like keeping them in the game. And like you said, it might not be enough. So because that pitching is not enough, unfortunately.
Well, I'm going to take the Dodgers here, so it'll be Dodgers in Atlanta in the.
But I don't see the Dodgers coming out after this season. After this series, I don't see them coming out as well. So
I still like the Braves to get to the World Series myself. In the last matchup we skipped over in the American League, the Astros have got a 2-game lead now over the Mariners. Mm-hmm. Mariners with a great job beating the Blue Jays, especially coming back from 8-1 in that second game.
Yep.
I think they're in the Schneider, the interim manager for the Blue Jays, may have maybe lost the chance at the permanent job with that choke job. But the Mariners came into this with some pretty good momentum, but the Astros blunted that pretty quickly. I think this game this series may end tomorrow. I think they're off today. I think it might end tomorrow in Seattle.
Yeah, and credit to Seattle. They're young.
They still got
They're one of my favorite teams. They're one of my black horses.
They got some good young pitchers, good young guys, obviously with Rodriguez and some other guys. So I think they're just a year away from really being able to beat a veteran.
They need to make a few moves. Yeah, they need to make a few moves. And and you know, and they're in a division that they can take a hold of if they make those moves, you know. So
and if the Astros take a step backwards too, because the Astros are really good. They got pitching coming out of their rear end, for crying out loud. It's a great team.
You know, then they brought up a couple players as well that are helping them out right now. And the Astros are just right now, they're good on all levels of playing, in their management and as well as their upper management. And even the manager right now, someone like Dusty Baker, you know, is just smooth sailing for them right now. So,
well, I think the series we've been waiting for will happen. The Yankees and the Astros, and we'll see the Braves and the Dodgers. And since we won't be on next week, because I'm on vacation, by the way, and I'll be in the middle of the Caribbean, I'll predict right now that, because I'm not sure if when we're on again, we could be heading to the World Series. I'm not really sure with the math. We're getting close, but I'll tell you right now, I'm going to predict. I hate to do this as a Yankee fan. I think we got a rematch of the Astros and the Braves in the World Series. So
yeah, it might be the Astros and Braves. I don't feel like the Dodgers will make it. So yeah, you're probably right.
Excellent. Well, let's move on, Carlos. Let's segue into the NFL. And we have this constant conversation. I have it with you. I have to have it with other fans that come on other shows. You
just got to move to New York and just you got to move into the city and visit these guys in Jersey, because they're nowhere near New York.
Well, okay. That's fair. I will not argue with you. That part I won't argue. When people ask me why I don't root for New York teams and they're Giant and Jet fans, I said, neither do you. So these teams, look at, again, you say let it play out. Giants are 4-1.
Yep.
Daniel Jones has led 3 comeback victories this season. A huge one last week against a much better team, you would think, in the Packers. They have their issues, but they had a 14-point lead in this game. And they're playing good football. A big game against Baltimore, the Wink Martindale Bowl this weekend against the Ravens. They're playing really good football. Daniel Jones is managing the games, and Saquon Barkley looks better than he looked before he got hurt.
He does. He's playing out of it.
Why is this team not a contender, Carlos?
So, first of all, they're playing in the division where they're not going to control anything in this division once they wrap that division up. So that right there is they're already in the negative. Daniel Jones, do you want Daniel Jones on your team?
Already in the negative. What are you talking about?
Do you want Daniel Jones on your team?
I don't need Daniel Jones on my team. I have Brady.
Do you want, if he was free and you didn't have to pay a shekel for him, would you want him on your team?
It depends.
As a backup, say it. You can say it as a backup, maybe. You can say it.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's one problem that the Giants have. The second problem that they have is, would you like Galladay on your team?
1-1. Are they making progress?
It's not progress if they're still going to be losing at the end of the season. So that's how I see it.
What again?
And I got the Giants going 6-11. So the collapse will begin sooner than later. So
the fat bastard who used to be their coach, who was a great coach, just a horrendous person, said that you are what your record says you are.
But that was football back then. Football nowadays is different. And I think people need to open their eyes to that. That, you know, even last night, I was doing the post game show. One of the co-hosts I was working with mentioned that, like they need a few years to develop this and that. And I'm like, this isn't a developmental league, man. This is you play today, and if not, you're gone tomorrow. This is more about money than anything else for these owners, and these guys they're not even chess pieces because the game ain't that long. It's more like checkers. So, at the end of the day, the Giants are right now, they're doing well because, again, and the football is terrible right now anyway. So they're reaping,
coaching other teams are out.
They're reaping the benefits. They're reaping the benefits of these teams playing horrible or making bad calls, which is, okay, that happens. But I have them going 16-11, and I'm going to stay with that. I'm not, just because they're winning now, it's not going to change my mind. I know that they don't have a wide receiving core. They don't have a quarterback that could get it to a wide receiving core, and they don't have a quarterback to make great decisions. He's managing the game right now, but he's not a top 10 quarterback.
So they're going 2-10 the rest of the year.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to happen because right now they're in a ton of injury issues, they still don't have any play out of the one guy that they're paying the most in Galladay. He don't even want to go on trips with the rest of the team.
So when they win this weekend, which Alan says they will not, they'll get brought back down to earth.
Yes, thank you, Alan. You're right.
They will beat the Ravens this week at home.
I think it'll be a close game. I think Giant fans will be upset that they got so excited that they were, a 500 team right now. But you're right, Alan. The Eagles and the Cowboys are still better than the Giants.
Best
and in
teams
fact,
always win.
Win. And in fact, the game that was so horrible last night will give the Washington Commanders our pick for the division an opportunity to come back and
you are what you did you see what not to get off the topic of the Giants, but you see what Ron Rivera said this week when he asked what's the difference between your team, Ron, and the rest of the division, and he said quarterback. That was his answer. That can't be good news for Carson Wentz.
Well, I mean, look, he's on the short leash. He's been on the short leash since he's got back. He's not playing on a team that has a good line anyway, but they do have Chase Young coming back. They did win yesterday. That keeps them, positive and as far as the win column. And all they got to do is wait for the Giants to just blow up, and they'll sneak in and come in third place like I had them coming in.
Second place, I have them in, and I still think they can do it. And the question isn't, are the Eagles and Cowboys better? That's not what I asked. I asked, are the Giants making progress? Because you
and the answer is no, because they're going to have to get a new team together.
They have matched their win record from last year. How can they not be improving? How can you sit there and tell me they're no better?
Because they got to get rid of all the players that are making them bad. They got to get rid of Jones. They have to get rid of Barkley. They have to get rid of Galladay. Those are three players that they have to get rid of. They can't keep on the roster.
How many games they lost this year because of Daniel Jones?
It doesn't matter. Okay, again, this is my question to you. You might put him on a pedestal.
You don't answer my question.
You might put Daniel Jones on a pedestal, but you will not take him and put him on your team.
Pedestal. I'm telling you, he's
a quarterback. He might now he's saved his career. He might be a great backup for the rest of his career because he dang sure ain't gonna be no starting quarterback anywhere else.
I don't know. I can think of some teams he could play on, like Carolina.
Any quarterback can play on that team. Atlanta. They proved it. They took the Jets' crappy quarterback. They took Cleveland's crappy quarterback. Anybody right now can play for Cleveland. Anybody. And Cleveland is a revolving door for terrible quarterbacks anyways, or terrible quarterback play, because sometimes it's not the quarterback's fault. So there's no argument in that, Keith.
Wait a minute.
There's proof in that pudding.
Hold it. You just said terrible quarterback play isn't always a quarterback's fault. So, but Daniel Jones, whenever he plays terrible, is Daniel Jones's fault, and not the horrendous offensive line that he has, not the lack of skill position players at wide receiver.
Again, Keith, would you make this guy your number one quarterback? Because you got two guys that are in the quarterback challenge right now, and neither of them are going to be a quarterback next year. So
that's not fair. No, he wouldn't beat out Mac Jones, and he might not even beat out Bailey Zappi.
All right, so what is this for? What are we talking about?
We're talking about.
I'm not going to say that the Giants are improving until I see improvement in the whole team.
Wow,
in every position.
4-1.
They're winning games. They're winning games off of trick plays, and a running back who's upset that he's still on the team that doesn't want him anymore because he can't pay his paychecks.
What else matters? I keep telling you,
it doesn't matter. Look, at the end of the day,
you'd love him right now. If he was a second or third round draft pick, you'd say, "Boy, this kid's made great progress through his 4 years in this league."
I gotta eat it. I gotta eat it because that's my quarterback. That's the guy who's running my team, but I don't have to like him.
No, guys are all upset at Daniel Jones because he was a sixth pick in the draft, and that's not his fault. That's the Giants' fault. So, anyway.
Like you got to take it how it is. The same thing with Wilson on being on the Jets team. So,
well, again, 3-2. He's only played a couple games. I get that. This is a team. I know Miami was down to their third string quarterback. I don't even know who the hell played in it after Bridgewater went down. But again, take away the quarter because I don't think quarterback play is one of the Dolphins' strengths anyway. They manhandled what is supposed to be a very good football team last week, 40-17. How is that team not making progress? 3-2. You got a quarterback who's improving, by the way. I will tell you again, you want to get rid of him.
Do you want Zach Wilson as your quarterback? Again, that's a question. Would you take him as your starting quarterback?
As a project, sure, but I don't think I don't think he needs to be Joe Montana today, because Joe Montana wasn't Joe Montana in year one either.
Keyword. You used the keyword. He's a project. Project.
Just
That
like
doesn't solidify you going into the Super Bowl,
just
man.
like Troy Aikman was. These guys don't come out and lead in year one unless you're an aberration.
Ben Roethlisberger.
A chance. They come in, if they don't take you to the Super Bowl immediately, let's get rid of this guy. He sucks.
The problem is that you could have got something else for him. That's the problem. That's what the Jets and the Giants problem is, that they got these guys, but they could have improved the team. But instead, they wasted these picks on these quarterbacks that really aren't worth the number on their jersey. So at the end of the day, yes, that's the frustrating part of being a fan and following these teams. They got these guys, high value, and right now they're at the low end of football in their careers. So
that's right. I mean, listen, you don't give guys a chance. He's a project that in year 3 you're going to be really pissed off if he's somewhere else and he develops into a good quarterback.
Like I'm mad about Geno Smith? No, thank you.
Like you're mad about Geno Smith? He's just, how good was he for the last 8 years? He stinks. He's had
and the Jets picked him. They picked him. The Jets picked him at a high rate, so they got rid of him.
Second round.
No, he was a first round pick.
No, I think top of the second round. I think maybe it's it could have been the bottom of the second round, but he didn't. He was not a high draft pick like Zach Wilson.
He was the Jets' first pick.
He may have been, but that doesn't mean he was a high draft pick. Let me just check it out. You say something else, I'll get pissed off about while I do this.
It's just the improvements, Keith, is when you're not just winning games, but your team has opportunity to keep winning games. And that's not where either of these teams are right now. As a New Yorker, I'm ecstatic that they're doing great, but I mean I'm realistic too. You put them against the higher echelon teams, and they're not. They'll compete maybe, but I don't want to see teams just compete.
What do you want them to do? They're winning games. They're 3-2. They're going to lose to the Patriots twice in the next month, but that's.
Oh my goodness, to Zappy or whatever, Zeppelo, whatever his name is.
Did you see the meme I posted this week? You did, because he made a comment, I think. What a great, that was so freaking funny, that Belichick talking to Bailey Zapps. Shut up, Brady. Whatever, Brady, just go out there and do that shit you do. Listen, they're getting better. There's no reason to think the Jets aren't. Their running game is better. They got some really great weapons at wide receiver. Their defense is playing much, much better football than they have in the longest time. So there's no reason to get.
Oh, you're right. He's a second round, 39. He was 39. You're right.
I thought that's what I thought.
Still, he's still the first pick that the Jets had, though.
Keep losing my monitor over here. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not telling you the Jets or the Giants are ready to compete for a Super Bowl. I'm telling you that these teams have made good incremental progress over the last couple of seasons.
Keith, you're telling me to eat trash can tacos and compare them to gourmet tacos, and that's not how that works, man. Well, I'm either going to get quality food or not eat at all. And these two teams are not quality. So that's all I want to say.
If I started making tacos today, to use your analogy, if I started making tacos today, would I be making the best tacos ever made?
Yeah, and I ain't coming to your restaurant either. Listen, Keith, at the end of the day, they're not where they should be for the amount of money they spent, and they're not doing what they should do to make it to the Super Bowl this year. That's where I stand, and that's why that's where I am with that.
Gino is real. Yeah, would you rather be a Commander fan right now, or a terrible owner or a suspect quarterback? There's a good question. Would you rather who would you root for if you didn't root for the Jets and the Giants? You don't like Buffalo either. They stink. They're only 3.5-point favorites in Kansas City this week, which is crazy, by the way.
Yeah, that's such a terrible.
I'll be all over the Chiefs this weekend. I'll be betting the crap out of that game.
Yeah.
So, but listen, this team is well on its way. Both of these teams, again, I'm not telling you maybe neither make the playoffs. I didn't predict they would. I said they'd be better. They are better so far. I don't understand how New York fans think if we don't win Why do you feel entitled as a Yankee fan, even a Patriot fan? I could feel more entitled to the fact that I need to be in the playoffs and win Super Bowls every year, not Jets and Giant fans. Maybe Giant fans.
Because they're spending a lot of money, both on players and for actually attending the games. The price just keeps going up. So they want to get something back. They want ROI, return on investment. That's why they're upset. Had these tickets cost $30, I get like, well, it's a $30 ticket, man. I'm not upset. But they don't cost $30.
Totally different conversation. So you think for your money, you should be competing for a Super Bowl every year?
For the amount of money we spend in New York, yes.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but that doesn't really come into play.
And give me a quality product. I don't want your tacos that you started cooking.
Open up a box and there's a quality product. You're telling me Joe Douglas has not done a good job of building this team over the last 3 years?
It's a nice, fine, athletic, youthful team that's doing good, but there's still something lacking, right? Show them, because I got to show receipts.
I did say they finished second and missed the playoffs, by the way. 9-8, I had them. They may beat that. They might beat the playoffs.
That's high, 9-8.
Well, I only got to win 5 more games. You got, you think they're going to lose, only win 2 more. And by the way, I got to go back to Alan's comment here. He talked about where is it?
The Commanders.
The Barkley thing. I mean, you can't look at that's not fair. Look at because he's on the team. He's part of the improvement.
I totally missed that.
5 Barkley, which I don't disagree with. But he's part of the team, and that's part of the improvement of the team, which I said when I said the Giants would be improved, I said it takes a year to get back from an injury like this sometimes, not just physically, but mentally.
Right.
And Barkley is back, and I didn't think he'd approach where he was. I thought he'd be a much better player than he was last year. I didn't think he'd approach what he was before, but he's approaching what he was before.
Yeah, and I like what Barkley's doing coming back, but I think his motivation is that the Giants were ready to cut ties with him. They just couldn't find anybody to move him with for the amount that they're paying him. So,
Alan, you're going to get your butt kicked this weekend. Just an FYI.
The
Cooper Rush is the quarterback, by the way, and it doesn't matter. They're not winning in Philadelphia. I don't think. We'll see. I will be betting that game, by the way.
Jimmy Pags will be there, and he'll tell you none other that Philadelphia will win.
Well, he'll tell me that every week. So
even when they weren't in the Super Bowl, the Eagles were the best team on the field.
Oh gosh,
I love that guy, but I just can't take that these Philly teams are just where they're at right now. Because as a New Yorker, you rather see like the team on the opposite side of the neighborhood or other side of the borough do okay, but you don't want to see
not Philadelphia.
Yeah, you don't want to see Philly like
Philadelphia. Yeah. That's for sure. Let's look at some of the college football. I didn't have a show the other night, which again I apologize for, but sometimes real life work takes precedent, and
that's okay. I don't want to keep up talking to UT volunteers because
we're going to talk about them in a second. By the way, a couple of good games last night with West Virginia upsetting Baylor, and
I saw that.
Alan commented UCF goes off for 70 last night, so a couple of good games there. Although who'd they play? Temple, I think. Big deal. But I like UCF, by the way. So let's talk about this week then. There's some really big matchups, and there's no bigger matchup than the team you don't want to talk about, the Volunteers hosting Alabama Crimson Tide. There's no bigger game this weekend on the schedule than that game. I got to believe that's a night game too, by the way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a midday, isn't it? Is it 3 o'clock? Or is it a night game? It might be a night game.
I got to believe they moved that game to the nighttime. Let's see. Where is it? I just saw it. You all right?
Yeah, I was searching at what time it was.
I got the schedule right here, and I can't find the damn thing. No, it's the afternoon, 3:30 slot.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's see. My plane ought to be landing in Miami about that time. I can go right to someplace and watch that game. No, I don't think I get into 6 o'clock. I think we'll watch it at halftime. But that's the marquee game of the week. Here's my 3 games I'll give you, and then if you agree, I got a couple of, and I also have a couple of sleepers. So obviously Tennessee, Alabama. I like the chances Tennessee has in this game. By the way,
The chances are a lot higher than the other teams that played them this
agreed. You got
year. But it's still Alabama and the depth that they have. We'll see if Tennessee will be able to beat up on that. Well,
they've struggled a couple times. There one play, a horrible call. Johnny Manziel even said it was a horrible call.
Well, Johnny football, right?
At the end of the game there, they had a chance to win with 3 seconds left, or the last play, they were out of timeouts, and they just ran a horrendous play with no chance. That had no chance. But Texas A&M has been playing horrible football, had a chance to beat Alabama at the end there. So,
yeah, see, and I mentioned on Robert's show on Sportscope, if you guys catch that, I'm on Friday nights at 8.
Yeah, catch those guys, Robert and Carl Roberts. That guy's just a bundle.
Man, he digs up some information. He finds bones in his closet.
I know. Good grief.
But I mentioned that like these teams in the SEC, if they can't get over the hump of beating Alabama, they're not going to get into the playoffs. And because that's right now that's the status quo with Georgia and Alabama, and Tennessee has right now the opportunity to be the first team to upset them out of the teams that people were high on. Arkansas, who had a better team returning, A&M, like they have the better chance. Like I said, they had the best chance. But can Saban pull out, his old wise Sabanisms and get these kids, playing? So
I'm going to take your Rocky Top team to beat Alabama at home this week, actually. So,
oh, you are okay.
How
many points?
Another big game. This one in the Big Ten. Penn State and Michigan. Penn State, listen, my problem and they're playing good football, but my problem with Franklin is the fact that he never beats Michigan or Ohio State when they're any good. He only beats them when they're not any good. And
your problem with Franklin is that he exists.
Yeah.
You feel about Franklin what I feel about what's his name?
A lot of people. Every quarterback in New York for sure.
No, Ole Miss coach.
Lane Kiffin, my boy. My boy. Listen, Lane Kiffin's team's playing better as well as Penn State for crying out loud. So,
yeah, well,
but this team, look at it, they'll have a good record. They'll probably be 10-2 because they'll lose to Ohio State and Michigan, and they won't get to the Big Ten championship. So that's a big game this weekend.
That's a big game. And you know what? If Penn State pulls an upset, I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think it can happen. So,
and let's see what Alan's saying something about this game. Oh, he's giving us 3 good games. So Penn State, I knew you were going to throw Kansas. Listen, I wrote down Kansas, Oklahoma as like an extra game. It's not one of the top 3 games in the country this year. And I'm going to tell you something. Your team, I think your Oklahoma team bounces back at home this week and beats Kansas. I think
it's possible.
I think Kansas got the ball deflated a little bit against.
Yeah, we called that game, both of us, the Horned Frogs.
Yep. It was a good football game, but I think
it was really good.
I think they're going to have a little hangover from this loss, and Oklahoma's got to be seething after the last couple of weeks. So I like Oklahoma. That Clemson Florida State game is interesting as well, Alan. So I don't disagree with you there. But my third game is going to be USC with their best test of the year so far, going to Utah and playing a good Utah team who's going to be angry after losing to UCLA last week. So if USC can go into Utah and win this game, then I'm a true believer that USC is a playoff contender this year.
But as Utah's, I don't think they're as good as they were last year.
Well, they got almost everybody back, but they're just not playing as well as they were. We got to remember too, and I was very high in Utah before the season, and I predicted them to be a contender, an outside contender for the playoff, and that Florida loss really deflated that opportunity. Then last week really eliminated them probably. But I got almost everybody back, and last year they had 4 losses. They just played great football the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean Utah is older as well, so their teams are usually older, being from the Mormon state there, and the guys travel. But I don't see the same effort or energy. I'm gonna say energy, not effort, on this Utah team. And they might not be as mad like last year. They would have been upset that they got beat. So
We'll find out this week. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
we'll find out what they have.
Level I thought they'd play at with a veteran quarterback in Cam Rising, who was NFL prospects and hasn't played all that well this year in my mind. So,
but what is it with that team? This is something about that team that they're missing something. I don't know if it's something on the defensive end or that extra wide receiver. It's just something like I can't put my finger on it because they do give a lot of effort. It's just their energy sometimes doesn't match the other team's energy.
That's a good point. But, UCLA came out of there with a lot of energy last week. And in my mind, this is a tough – you don't quite in my mind anyway, Chip Kelly teams with toughness.
No. They're just
– UCLA team. They play very tough.
They did. Kudos to Chip Kelly for having them ready.
Yeah, UCLA USC is going to be a tremendous matchup if USC gets out of this game and they get to that game undefeated to both of them. They're liable to play a couple of weeks, within a couple of weeks twice, once in the championship game after the regular season game. I do like Alan mentioned Kansas, Oklahoma. I do have some interest in that game. I do think the Sooners will bounce back, but I'll give you a game that I like kind of outside the big game spotlight. North Carolina State visiting undefeated Syracuse. Syracuse is a favorite in this game. NC State just fell out of the top 10 not long ago, guys. This is a really key game for Syracuse, who's played much better. People will say they haven't beaten anybody, but they did beat Purdue, who hasn't played bad football. This is a key game for Syracuse. If they win this game, they're who knows? They could be looking at a really good bowl game coming up. And North Carolina State's coming off a couple of weeks where they lost, and then they struggled a bit last week against Florida State. They did win the game, but they struggled. I think this will be a fun game to watch.
I got a sneaky one for you. Yeah. Memphis versus East Carolina.
Pittsburgh, East Carolina.
No, Memphis.
Sorry, Memphis, East Carolina. Yeah. Probably a big game in the. I don't have the conference standings up here, but probably a big game in the AAC, I would think. That if there's a disappointment this year, if you're a college football fan, it's that there's no Group of 5 team that's really stood out and can even pretend to be in the playoff picture. At least not yet. I don't see anybody making a run up the standings. BYU disappointed with a couple losses already.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a disappointment this year. We got a couple of minutes before we have to wrap up. Any odds and ends you want to throw out there that we didn't get a chance to talk about today, Carlos?
No, I really got all right with discussing my displeasure with the football teams here.
Oh God, displeasure of teams 4-1 and 3-2 that usually don't win that.
No. Again, Keith, you didn't hear what I said from the beginning. I'm like, I'm actually ecstatic that they're doing well. I'm just going to be a realist and understand that that's not where they're going to stand.
Well, enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment.
It's hard to enjoy the moment when you know what's coming. This is the calm before the storm.
The thing is, you don't know for sure what's coming.
No, it's coming, and it's going to hit hard.
The moment as a Patriots fan, after shutout defeat, I know it's the Lions.
The difference is that your ownership, since it's changed over to Kraft, you have more confidence in them.
Well, that's 30 years ago.
Right, but you have more confidence that he's going to try to make sure that the Patriots stay competitive to a point where they can make the playoffs, an opportunity to be in the Super Bowl, right? Whereas the Jets fan base, the Giants fan base, they don't have that.
Snyder.
The Jets fan base want to get rid of their ownership, and the Giants fan base is kind of upset on how it took this long for the Giants to and after the Super Bowl and not be a Super Bowl contender this year.
Agreed. I get it. Listen, we don't have much time, but maybe we'll dive into this next week. Impeach Dan Snyder. The story's out now that Dan Snyder's got dirt on Jerry Jones trying to shut him up. Dan, you know what? It's thank God I'm not a Commodore fan. I'm sorry, a team formerly known as a Redskins fan, because Dan Snyder is the worst owner in football, and they have to force him to sell this team.
Yeah, he literally almost got a free stadium in Washington, Virginia, and he was able to, make moves, but he's not the owner that they need, especially for that fan base, man. That's a strong, hardcore fan base, and they deserve better.
One totally private funded stadium in the NFL. You know where it's located?
St. Louis?
Foxborough, Massachusetts.
That used to be a circus ground, right?
It was a circus there for about 40 years. Yes, the football team. Thanks, Carlos. Listen, great show today. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks, Alan, for all the comments. Guys, we'll be back in 2 weeks. I'll pop in sometimes on and off during the Caribbean trip. Just don't know when. So we'll see you guys later. Have a great weekend.